Adrian Moretti's glass stopped halfway to his lips when Dante Villani smiled at his secretary. The crystal tumbler caught the amber light of the private dining room, throwing a thin gold stripe across Adrian's knuckles, while somewhere beyond the smoked glass doors a piano played softly beneath the muted clink of expensive silverware. Elena Rossi stood 3 feet behind Adrian's chair with a black leather portfolio against her ribs, composed in the charcoal suit she wore to every negotiation that mattered. The room smelled of cedar paneling, espresso, and the faint bite of Adrian's bourbon. 6 men occupied the long walnut table, but Elena's attention remained on the documents before her. "Page 14, she said quietly. Adrian lowered his glass without looking back. "I know." Elena slid one sheet from the portfolio and placed it beside his hand. "Then you know Villani changed the distribution percentage from 12 to 17. Silence swallowed the piano for half a second. Across the table, Dante leaned back, the leather of his chair giving a soft creak. His dark suit was immaculate, his silver cuff links catching the low pendant lights. "Your secretary reads contracts better than some attorneys. I pay 6 figures. Adrian's thumb rested on the altered number. "That says more about your attorneys." A few restrained laughs moved around the table. Dante did not join them. His gaze returned to Elena. "Elena Rossi, right?" She met his eyes. "That's right." Adrian's jaw shifted once, small enough that nobody else seemed to notice. Elena did. She noticed everything about him. She had spent 4 years learning the difference between Adrian's silence when he was calculating and his silence when someone had crossed a line. She knew he hated fluorescent lighting, never took calls while eating, and tapped his index finger exactly twice when he wanted a conversation ended. She knew which elevators in the Moretti Tower were private, which names never appeared on written schedules, and which meetings required her to leave her phone inside a signal-blocking drawer. Yet whenever anyone asked what Elena Rossi was to Adrian Moretti, his answer never changed. "Secretary. Employee. Nothing more." Dante turned one page of the contract slowly. Paper whispered against paper. "How long have you worked for Moretti?" "For years." "4." Dante's eyebrows lifted. "Then you probably know his organization better than half the men sitting here." Adrian finally looked up. The temperature-controlled room held steady at 68 degrees, but the space between the two bosses seemed to sharpen. "Are we negotiating my routes?" Adrian asked. "Or interviewing my staff?" Dante smiled. "Curiosity. Control it." Elena closed her portfolio. The snap of the magnetic clasp sounded unusually loud. Dante's smile widened instead of disappearing. "Protective." Adrian gave a short, humorless laugh. "Of an employee?" He leaned back and adjusted one cuff with deliberate calm. "Don't confuse competence with importance. Elena is just an employee." Nobody spoke. From the service corridor came the distant rattle of a cart rolling across tile. Elena's fingers tightened once around the edge of the portfolio, pressing into the textured leather, then relaxed. "Of course, Mr. Moretti." Adrian's eyes flicked toward her. Perhaps it was the formality. She usually called him Adrian when they were behind closed doors. Perhaps it was how smoothly she said it, without accusation, without giving him anything to defend himself against. He looked away first. The negotiation resumed. Elena corrected 2 figures, intercepted a question Adrian had no intention of answering, and quietly handed him the exact document he needed before he requested it. She remained flawless. That seemed to irritate him more. 40 minutes later, chairs scraped backward, and the meeting dissolved into handshakes. Adrian's men moved toward the door while Elena collected the signed papers. Dante remained behind. He approached her as she aligned the pages against the polished table, his footsteps soft on the thick carpet. "Ms. Rossi." Elena looked up. He placed a cream-colored business card on top of her portfolio. No title, just his name and a private number embossed in black. "I'm not looking for another job." "I didn't say you were." Dante glanced toward Adrian, who had stopped beside the doorway. His hand rested on the brass handle, perfectly still. Dante lowered his voice, though not enough to keep Adrian from hearing. "But a woman who can spot a 5% theft before 6 men at this table deserves more than just an employee." Elena stared at the card. Adrian stared at Dante. Then Dante gave her a measured smile. "If you're ever interested in being valued accordingly, call me." He walked past Adrian without another word. Elena slipped the card into her portfolio. Adrian's gaze followed the movement. In the elevator moments later, polished steel reflected them, standing several feet apart, while the cables hummed overhead. Adrian watched the descending numbers. Elena watched the doors. At the 20th floor, he finally spoke. "Throw away Valeni's card." Elena turned her head. "Why?" The elevator continued downward with a quiet mechanical whisper. Adrian's reflection looked at hers in the steel. "Because I said so." Elena held his gaze. "That sounds like a strange order for someone who's just an employee." For the first time that night, Adrian Moretti had no answer. And somewhere above them, Dante Valeni was already making plans to steal her away. By 9 the next morning, Dante Valeni's card was still inside Elena's portfolio. Adrian noticed it when she opened the black leather cover beneath the white light of his 42nd floor office. The embossed cream edge showed for barely a second before Elena placed a stack of contracts over it, but Adrian's pen stopped against the paper. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago traffic crawled far below in thin ribbons of red and white, while the ventilation system breathed cool air through a room scented with dark coffee and polished walnut. "I told you to throw that away." Elena set his schedule beside his laptop. "And I asked why." "You work for me. That explains my paycheck. Not my trash." Adrian raised his eyes. Elena was already moving toward the conference table, sorting folders into precise rows as though the conversation had ended. For 4 years, she had anticipated every instruction before he finished giving it. This morning, she had made him ask twice for coffee. It arrived black, exactly as always, but without the small glass of sparkling water she normally placed beside it. Adrian looked at the empty circle on the desk where that glass should have been. "Your 10 o'clock moved to 11, Elena said. "The legal team needs your signature before noon. Your car leaves at 12:40. Cancel lunch." "Already done." "And Valeni?" Her hands paused over a folder. "What about him?" Adrian tapped his pen twice. "If he contacts you, I want to know." Elena looked at the familiar gesture, then deliberately closed the folder instead of leaving. "That isn't part of my job description." The office went still except for the muted tick of the brass clock near the bookcase. Adrian pushed back from his desk. "Elena." Her phone vibrated. Once. The sound was small against the thick carpet, yet Adrian's gaze dropped immediately to the screen in her hand. Elena read the message without changing expression. "Who is it?" "A business contact." "Valeni." She slipped the phone into her pocket. "My 10 o'clock is waiting downstairs." She turned toward the door. "Your 10 o'clock?" Adrian's voice stopped her. Elena glanced back. "Mr. Valeni requested a professional meeting." "I accepted." Adrian crossed the office before the door could close. His shoes struck the hardwood in measured beats, and he pressed one palm against the door above the handle. He did not touch Elena. He did not need to. His reflection stood beside hers in the dark glass panel, broad-shouldered and rigid. "Cancel it." Elena turned. "Give me one professional reason." His mouth opened. Nothing came. Elena waited 3 seconds, then pulled the door open. Adrian let his hand fall. 40 minutes later, she entered the marble lobby of the Langham, where warm gold lamps softened the gray morning beyond the windows and porcelain cups clicked against saucers from the restaurant. Dante was already seated in a corner booth. He rose when Elena approached. Adrian never rose for anyone. "Ms. Rossi." Dante pulled out her chair. "Coffee." 10 minutes, Elena said, remaining standing. "Then make them profitable." Dante's grin flashed. He slid a slim navy folder across the table. Elena opened it. The first page made her fingers stop. The salary was nearly double. Beneath it were decision-making authority, a private office, profit participation, and a title that made the difference unmistakable: Director of Strategic Operations. "You think money is enough to buy loyalty?" she asked. "No." Dante rested his hands on the table. "That's why I'm offering something Moretti doesn't." "And what's that?" "Recognition." The restaurant smelled of roasted coffee and warm bread. A spoon struck porcelain somewhere behind her. Elena closed the folder, but she did not slide it back. Dante's eyes sharpened. "You prevented Moretti from signing away 5% last night. You manage his schedule, negotiations, access, and half the information that reaches his desk. Yet when I noticed you, he reduced you to 3 words." Elena's thumb traced the folder's smooth edge. "You're trying to provoke him." "Of course." Dante leaned back. "But that doesn't make my offer false." Elena stood, taking the folder with her. "I'll consider it." When she returned to Moretti Tower, the elevator opened directly onto Adrian's executive floor. He was standing outside his office. No jacket, sleeves rolled once. Her untouched, sparkling water sat on the console table beside him. His eyes dropped to the navy folder under her arm. You went. Elena walked past him. I said I would. And you brought his offer back. She placed it on her desk. Adrian followed, stopping on the opposite side. How much? Enough. I'll double it. Elena looked up slowly. You don't even know the number. I don't need to. She pushed the folder into her drawer. That's the problem. The drawer clicked shut. Adrian's fingers curled against the edge of her desk. What does he want? Me. The word landed between them with startling simplicity. Adrian's grip tightened. Elena picked up the afternoon schedule and placed it into his hand. Dante gave me 72 hours to decide. Then she walked into the conference room and closed the door, leaving Adrian Moretti alone beside the desk of the employee he had suddenly become willing to pay anything not to lose. At 7:05 the next morning, Adrian reached for a glass of sparkling water that wasn't there. His fingers stopped beside the black coffee Elena had placed on the walnut desk, where pale morning light cut across the polished surface and the muted hum of downtown traffic rose 42 floors below. The coffee smelled dark and bitter. Nothing else occupied the familiar spot beside it. Water, Adrian said. Elena continued typing at her desk outside his open office. The soft clicks of her keyboard did not change rhythm. The kitchen is stocked. Adrian looked through the doorway. You always bring it. Her hand stopped. I also used to make your dinner reservations, remind you which tie your mother hated, replace the batteries in your private phone, and tell the driver when you'd forgotten your coat. She pressed enter and resumed typing. None of those things are secretarial duties. Adrian stared at the empty space beside his coffee. Since when does that matter? Since I learned I'm just an employee. The words were delivered without heat. That made them harder to answer. By 10, Adrian had discovered 3 more absences. Elena handed his security chief the meeting list instead of briefing him personally. She sent Adrian's lunch reservation through the corporate system rather than calling the restaurant manager herself. When a tailor arrived with 2 jackets, Elena directed him into Adrian's office and returned to her computer instead of choosing the one she knew Adrian would prefer. The machinery of Moretti Tower kept running. Perfectly. That was the problem. Elena had removed herself from every invisible space between obligation and care, and Adrian could suddenly see how many there had been. At 1:20, the elevator chimed. A courier stepped onto the executive floor carrying a rectangular white box tied with a dark blue ribbon. The scent of fresh lilies reached Elena before he reached her desk. Delivery for MS. Rossi. Adrian's office door opened. Elena signed the tablet. The courier handed her the box and left. Inside lay a fountain pen in a velvet case, heavy black lacquer with Elena's initials engraved in silver. Beneath it was a card. Adrian crossed the carpet, his footsteps nearly silent. Valeni. Elena picked up the card. Yes. Send it back. She read the message. For the contracts you'll be signing instead of carrying. Adrian held out his hand. Give me the card. Elena placed it inside the box instead. No, his eyes moved from the pen to her face. He's recruiting you to provoke me. Then stop being provoked. The desk phone rang. Elena answered immediately. Moretti Executive Office. A pause. Her gaze shifted toward Adrian. Yes, Mr. Valeni. Adrian's hand lowered slowly. Elena listened. Thursday evening? Another pause. I'll be there. She hung up. Where? Adrian asked. The Valeni Foundation reception. You're not going. Elena stood and slipped the fountain pen into her purse. I'm attending in a professional capacity. You work for Moretti. Until I decide whether I still do. Adrian moved around the desk, but Elena was already walking toward the conference room with a stack of folders against her hip. He followed. Inside, 12 senior Moretti men were waiting beneath recessed lights, the air cool with conditioned air and the sharp scent of espresso. Elena took her usual chair beside Adrian's. Then she looked at the seating chart, lifted her folder, and moved 3 seats away. Adrian stopped behind his chair. Elena. Every conversation died. She looked up. Mr. Moretti? His gaze settled on the empty chair beside him. Your seat is here. Elena glanced at it. Any competent employee can take notes from there. One of the men lowered his eyes to the table. Adrian remained standing for another beat before pulling out his chair. Throughout the meeting, Elena spoke only when required. No whispered corrections. No discreet notes pushed beneath Adrian's hand. When he requested a financial projection, she directed him to page 26 rather than opening it for him. When the meeting ended, Adrian stayed seated while everyone filed out. Elena gathered her papers. How long? He asked. Until what? Until you stop this. She slid the final folder into her portfolio. I'm not doing anything to you, Adrian. I'm doing exactly what you said I was paid to do. The use of his first name landed differently now. He rose. And Thursday. Elena walked toward the door. Dante invited me because he thinks I belong in the room, not 3 feet behind somebody's chair. The door closed softly behind her. That evening, at 8:17, Adrian stepped from his office and found the executive floor dark. No desk lamp glowing beside Elena's computer. No quiet keyboard. No coat hanging behind her chair while she waited for him to finish. Only the low blue security lights and the cold reflection of the city against black glass. On her spotless desk sat tomorrow's schedule. Adrian picked it up. At the bottom, in Elena's precise handwriting, were 4 words, I won't be staying late. He looked at her empty chair for a long moment, then took out his phone. Move everything Thursday night, he told his driver. Where are we going? Came the reply. Adrian stared at the darkness where Elena usually Saturday, the Valeni reception. Crystal chandeliers burned above Elena as Dante Valeni offered her his arm in front of half Chicago's Underworld. She did not take it. Instead, she lifted a champagne flute from a passing silver tray and stepped beside him beneath the vaulted ceiling of the Valeni Foundation ballroom, where a string quartet played near 20-foot windows overlooking the river. Candle wax, expensive cologne, and white lilies scented the warm air. Around them, tailored suits and evening gowns moved between marble columns, while conversations dropped half a note whenever Dante passed. Elena wore midnight blue, simple and precise, with the black lacquer fountain pen Dante had given her clipped inside her small leather portfolio. She had come alone. More importantly, she had come without Moretti colors, Moretti security, or Adrian's permission. You expected me to refuse, she said. Dante took a sip of bourbon. I expected Moretti to stop you. He doesn't own my evenings. Interesting. Dante's eyes shifted toward the entrance. Someone should tell him. Elena followed his gaze. Adrian Moretti stood beneath the gold archway in a black tuxedo, one hand buttoning his jacket. He had brought no date. 2 Moretti men remained near the doors, but Adrian crossed the ballroom alone. The quartet continued playing, yet the room changed around him. Conversations thinned. A server moved abruptly aside. Adrian's attention never left Elena. Dante smiled. There he is. Don't. I haven't done anything. That's rarely stopped you. Adrian reached them. His gaze touched Dante first, then Elena's portfolio, then returned to her face. You moved everything Thursday night, Elena said. Apparently. You hate charity receptions. I'm developing new interests. Dante's glass clicked softly against the marble cocktail table. Such as employee retention? Adrian turned toward him. Such as knowing when you're using my staff to make a point. Your staff, Dante repeated. That's precisely what I wanted to discuss. He gestured toward a group waiting near the stage. Elena, walk with me. Adrian's hand shifted at his side. Elena saw it. Dante saw it too. She moved before either man could decide for her. Certainly. She walked beside Dante across the ballroom. Adrian remained where he was for 3 seconds, then followed. At the far end of the room, Dante introduced Elena not as Adrian's secretary, but as the woman who had prevented a multi-million-dollar error in the Moretti Valeni agreement. A banker asked Elena directly about distribution risk. She answered without looking toward Adrian. A logistics executive challenged her projection. Elena opened her portfolio, wrote 3 figures on a cocktail napkin with Dante's pen, and slid it across the table. Your model assumes every shipment clears on schedule, she said. Reduce successful movement by 8% and your margin disappears by the 3rd quarter. The executive studied the numbers. His smile vanished. She's right. Dante lifted his glass toward Elena. Usually, 10 feet away, Adrian stood beneath the chandelier's hard white light with an untouched bourbon in his hand. For 4 years, Elena had supplied him with answers like that from 3 feet behind his chair. Tonight, men were turning their chairs toward her. When Dante led Elena toward the terrace, Adrian followed again. Outside, the river reflected broken strips of gold beneath them, and cold air carried the smell of stone and distant exhaust. Dante rested both hands on the iron railing. My offer expires tomorrow. Elena's eyes remained on the water. I remember. Then let me improve it. Adrian stepped through the terrace doors. Enough. Dante turned. You weren't invited into this conversation. She works for me. Tonight, she's my guest. Adrian came closer. Elena. She faced him. What? The single word stopped him more effectively than a raised voice. Come inside. Why? Because this performance is finished. Elena closed her portfolio. I'm not performing. Dante reached into his jacket and removed a folded document. Director of Strategic Operations. Full authority over my corporate negotiations. A seat at executive meetings. Double her Moretti compensation, plus profit participation. He held it toward Elena. And she answers directly to me. Adrian's expression hardened. You're trying to buy her. No, Dante kept the document extended. I'm trying to hire her. You're the one talking as though she's property. The terrace went silent except for traffic far below and the soft music leaking through the glass doors. Elena took the document. Adrian's eyes dropped to her hand. Don't sign it. She looked at him. Give me one reason that isn't in order. Adrian said nothing. Dante stepped beside her, close enough to make Adrian's shoulders lock. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., my office. Sign that contract, Elena, and you stop standing behind powerful men. His gaze shifted deliberately to Adrian. You become one of them. Elena folded the offer and placed it inside her portfolio. Then she walked back into the ballroom alone, leaving Chicago's two most dangerous bosses facing each other across 6 feet of cold stone, and Adrian with less than 24 hours to decide whether Elena Rossi was truly just an employee. At 4:38 Friday afternoon, Elena canceled the car that was supposed to take Adrian Moretti to a meeting he could not afford to miss. The dispatch screen glowed blue against her desk, while rain tapped softly against the 42nd floor windows and the office ventilation pushed cold air carrying the bitter scent of Adrian's untouched coffee. Why did you cancel it? Adrian asked from his doorway. Elena was already standing. Because the route changed. She crossed to the wall display and pulled up his schedule. Your security team moved departure from the underground garage to the east entrance 11 minutes ago. Construction on Lower Wacker. I know. Elena tapped the screen. But nobody told me. Adrian's eyes narrowed. You said you were limiting yourself to secretarial duties. I am. She picked up her phone. And your secretary knows you never change an exit after the morning security briefing unless you approve it personally. Adrian reached for his private phone. Elena caught his wrist. It was the first time she had touched him in days. Don't call anyone yet. His gaze dropped to her fingers. Elena released him immediately. Stay here. She moved fast. Downstairs. The Moretti Tower lobby was all black marble and brushed steel, filled with the echo of shoes and the clean chemical smell of freshly polished floors. Elena approached the security desk, requested the vehicle log, and compared it against the schedule on her tablet. A black sedan waited beyond the revolving doors, engine running at the curb. Wrong license plate. 1 digit. That was all. Elena looked toward the security chief. Lock the east entrance. Ms. Rossi, now. The steel shutters descended with a mechanical growl just as the sedan pulled away from the curb. No shots. No spectacle. Just tires hissing across wet pavement and a car disappearing into Chicago traffic. Elena's phone rang before anyone spoke. Adrian, come upstairs. His voice was quiet. 10 minutes later, she entered his office carrying the vehicle log. Adrian stood beside the windows with his jacket off. Rain streaked the glass behind him, turning the city lights into blurred ribbons. 2 senior Moretti men waited near his desk. Explain, Adrian said. Elena placed the log down. Someone inserted a replacement car into your departure plan after your security briefing. Whether the intention was surveillance, interception, or something else doesn't matter. They knew your schedule changed. One of the men reached for the paper. Elena covered it with her hand. No, the man froze. Excuse me. Until Adrian decides who receives this information, nobody touches it. Adrian looked at her hand, then at the man. You heard her. The room emptied within seconds. When the door shut, Adrian stepped closer. You could have gone to Valeni's office at 6 and let my people handle this. Elena checked the brass clock. 5:07. Your people missed it. You didn't. That's what you pay me for. His jaw tightened at the familiar phrase. Stop doing that. Doing what? Reducing yourself to a paycheck every time I try to say something. Elena gave a small, incredulous laugh. You taught me that language. Her phone vibrated. Dante's name appeared on the screen. Adrian saw it. Elena answered. Dante. 6 o'clock, Dante said through the speaker, his voice faint but clear in the quiet office. My attorney has the contract ready. Elena looked toward the rain-darkened windows. I know. Are you coming? Adrian stood motionless across from her. Elena opened her mouth, but a hard knock struck the office door. The security chief entered without waiting. Boss, the vehicle was registered under a shell company. Whoever sent it knew Ms. Rossi would be the one checking the schedule. Adrian's attention snapped to Elena. What does that mean? She asked. It means, the security chief said, they weren't only watching him. Adrian crossed the room and took Elena's phone gently but decisively from her hand. Valenti, he said into it. She won't be there at 6. Elena stared at him. Dante's voice hardened. That isn't your decision. Tonight it is. Adrian ended the call. Elena immediately took her phone back. You had no right. Someone targeted the one person who controls access to me. Then increase security. I already have. Adrian opened the office door. Formality guards were waiting outside. Elena's face went still. You assigned them to me? Yes. Remove them. No, Adrian. His voice dropped. You saved me because everyone around me overlooked what you saw in seconds. And now someone else has noticed exactly how important you are to this organization. Elena stepped closer. Important to the organization? Adrian's eyes held hers. The rain whispered against the glass behind them. He almost answered. Instead, his gaze shifted toward the 4 guards. Nobody gets near her without my approval. Elena's portfolio struck the desk with a sharp crack. I am not territory. Adrian looked back at her. I know. Then stop treating me like it. She pulled open the drawer, took out Dante's contract, and held it between them. You have until 6 tomorrow evening to give me a reason to stay that has nothing to do with security, money, orders, or the Moretti organization. She placed the contract against his chest and released it. Otherwise, I sign. At 9:12 Saturday morning, Adrian ordered 4 armed guards away from Elena's desk, and every man on the executive floor heard why. The elevators hummed behind them beneath cold white ceiling lights, while the sharp scent of fresh coffee mixed with leather and gun oil from the security detail stationed near the windows. Elena stood beside her desk in a charcoal coat, Dante's contract locked inside her portfolio. She had expected an argument. Instead, Adrian walked directly to his security chief. Pull them back. The man blinked. Boss, after yesterday, she said remove them. Adrian's voice stayed low. Remove them. 4 guards disappeared into the elevator. Elena watched the steel doors close. Thank you. Adrian turned toward her. You have until 6. I heard you. Good. But you're coming with me first. 20 minutes later, they entered a private conference room 3 floors below, where 8 senior Moretti men waited around a black oak table. Frosted glass muted the daylight, and the ventilation blew cool air across untouched espresso cups. Elena stopped when she saw an empty chair beside Adrian's. What is this? A security restructuring. Adrian pulled out the chair for her. Sit. She remained standing. Adrian looked around the table. Yesterday, someone tried to exploit a change in my schedule. Elena caught it. From now on, no route change, executive movement, or external meeting is confirmed without her clearance. One lieutenant frowned. She's your secretary. Adrian's gaze sharpened. She's the reason I didn't step into the wrong car yesterday. The man leaned back. Elena slowly sat. For the next 30 minutes, she dismantled their existing access procedure and rebuilt it. She removed 2 redundant approvals, established a direct verification code, and shifted final route confirmation away from the executive office entirely. Pins scratched across paper. Phones buzzed against wood. Adrian said almost nothing. He simply let Elena command the room. When the meeting ended, one man approached Adrian near the door. Giving her that much authority creates questions. Then answer them correctly. How? Adrian glanced across the room. Elena was closing her portfolio. Tell them nobody touches my secretary. Elena's hand stopped. The lieutenant nodded and left. The door clicked shut. Elena turned. Your secretary? Adrian seemed to realize too late what he had said. That isn't what I meant. Yesterday, it was 4 guards. Today it's executive authority. But the second another man asks what I am to you, I become your secretary again. Elena, no. She crossed the room, heels striking the hardwood. Dante offers me a seat at his table because he wants me there. You give me one because you're terrified he'll take me away. Adrian stepped closer. You think this is about Valenti? Isn't it? He walked into my negotiation and started circling something that belonged. Adrian stopped. Elena's expression changed instantly. Finish that sentence. The room seemed to shrink around them. Adrian's hand curled once at his side. Something important to me. That isn't what you were going to say. No. You were going to say I belong to you. Adrian looked away. Elena opened her portfolio. Paper slid against leather with a dry whisper. She removed a single white envelope and placed it on the table between them. Adrian stared at it. What is that? My resignation. He did not touch it. Take it back. No, I can change your title. That's not the problem. Your compensation, authority, still not the problem. Adrian finally picked up the envelope, but Elena kept 2 fingers against the opposite edge. You called me just an employee when another man noticed me. Then the moment he wanted me, you started acting like I was something he was stealing from you. Adrian's grip tightened on the paper. He is trying to steal you. People can't be stolen from jobs, Adrian. They leave. She released the envelope. For several seconds, only the ventilation system moved air through the room. You have spent 4 years deciding what I am whenever it suits you, Elena said. Employee when admitting more would cost you something. Yours when losing me might. Adrian lowered the resignation letter. What do you want me to say? Elena stepped toward the door. Nothing. His head lifted. You gave me until 6. I changed my mind. She opened the door. I'm not using Dante to force an answer out of you. Elena. She stopped without turning. I'm resigning whether I accept his offer or not. The brass handle felt cold beneath her palm. Behind her, paper crumpled softly in Adrian's fist. For the first time in 4 years, what happens next is my decision. Then Elena walked out, and Adrian Moretti was left holding the resignation of the woman he had called just an employee. Only after another boss wanted her badly enough to make Adrian understand that she had never belonged to him at all. Monday morning, Adrian walked past Elena's empty desk and stopped so abruptly that the elevator doors closed behind him. Pale sunlight lay across the spotless surface where her monitor had been, and the executive floor carried only the sterile smell of floor polish and fresh coffee instead of the faint citrus hand cream Elena kept beside her keyboard. Her chair was pushed in. Her brass nameplate was gone. Adrian entered his office without speaking. At 8:03, his coffee arrived with cream. He stared at it. I drink it black. The new assistant flushed. I'm sorry, Mr. Moretti. At 8:20, 2 meetings were scheduled in different buildings 11 miles apart. At 9:15, Adrian reached for a contract and found the supporting figures missing. Nothing collapsed. Nothing dramatic happened. Everything simply took longer, arrived slightly wrong, or required him to ask for things Elena had once placed beneath his hand before he knew he needed them. By noon, the quiet had become unbearable. Adrian opened the bottom drawer of Elena's former desk. Empty. He checked another. Pens, paper clips, spare charging cables. In the last drawer sat a gray binder labeled Transition. He carried it into his office and opened it beneath the warm brass desk lamp. Elena had documented everything. Preferred entrances for negotiations. Which executives exaggerated when nervous. Which restaurants had private exits. Which drivers could be trusted with unscheduled route changes. Beside one entry, she had written, Adrian skips meals before difficult negotiations. Put food in the car. He turned another page. Never schedule his mother before 10 a.m. He pretends not to care when she complains, then spends the next meeting distracted. Adrian's thumb stopped against the paper. The binder was not a secret file. It was 4 years of attention converted into instructions so the next person could do a fraction of what Elena had done without being asked. His private phone rang. Moretti. You sound terrible, Dante said. Adrian closed the binder. What do you want? Nothing from you. A pause. Elena is meeting my attorneys at 5. Adrian looked toward the empty desk beyond his office door. She resigned. I heard. So why call me? Courtesy. Dante's voice remained smooth. You accuse me of stealing her. I thought you should know she's coming voluntarily. Adrian ended the call. At 4:42, a black Moretti sedan stopped outside a glass tower along the river. Adrian stepped onto the sidewalk before his driver could open the door. Cold wind came off the water carrying exhaust and the metallic smell of the city, while tires hissed over damp pavement. Across the lobby, behind 30 feet of glass, Elena stood at the security desk in a camel coat with her black portfolio beneath one arm. Dante's fountain pen was clipped inside it. Adrian entered. Elena heard his shoes strike the marble and turned. She did not look surprised. You shouldn't be here. Probably not. He held out the gray binder. You forgot this. Elena looked at it. No. I left it for whoever replaces me. There are 6 pages explaining how I take coffee. 2. That isn't better. The corner of her mouth almost moved, then didn't. An elevator chimed behind her. Dante stepped out, removing one glove as he approached. Adrian. Dante. Dante looked at the binder, then at Elena. 5 minutes early. I like that. He gestured toward the elevator. Elena started forward. Adrian did not block her. That made her stop. For days he had ordered, followed, guarded, interrupted. Now he simply stood beneath the cold lobby lights holding the evidence of everything he had failed to notice while she was beside him. You're letting me go? She asked. Adrian's fingers tightened around the binder. You told me people aren't stolen from jobs. They leave. And his throat moved once. And I finally listened. Dante waited beside the open elevator. Elena looked between them, then stepped inside. The doors began closing. Adrian stayed where he was. At the last second, Elena's hand appeared between the steel panels. The doors reopened. She looked directly at him. Why did you really come? Adrian glanced down at the binder. Because my office works without you. Elena's expression went still. I see. That's not what I meant. He stepped closer. The meetings happen. The cars arrive. The contracts get signed. His voice lowered. But I keep turning toward your desk. Elena's fingers tightened around her portfolio. Dante said nothing. Adrian lifted the binder slightly. I spent 4 years noticing everything you did and pretending that meant I didn't notice you. Silence filled the marble lobby. Elena looked at him for one long beat, then stepped backward into the elevator. That still isn't enough, Adrian. I know. The doors closed between them. This time he did not stop them. The floor indicator climbed toward Dante's offices, and Adrian remained below with Elena's binder in his hand, watching another boss come closer than ever to taking the woman Adrian had finally admitted he could not replace. The elevator reached Dante's floor before Adrian decided that letting Elena choose did not require him to remain silent. Upstairs, Dante's conference room overlooked the Chicago River through walls of glass, the city glowing in blue and gold beneath the early evening sky. Soft recessed lights reflected across a 12-foot black table, and the room smelled of leather, fresh espresso, and the faint ink of newly printed contracts. Elena sat opposite Dante with his offer open before her. The black lacquer fountain pen rested beside the signature line. You changed 3 clauses, Dante said. 4. Elena tapped the final page. Your non-compete was unreasonable. Dante smiled. And Moretti called you a secretary. He called me an employee. Even worse. Elena picked up the pen. Dante's smile disappeared when the conference room doors opened. Adrian entered alone. No guards. No lawyer. His black overcoat was still buttoned, and cold air followed him in from the hallway. Elena lowered the pen. Adrian. Dante remained seated. You're developing a habit of entering rooms where you weren't invited. Adrian reached beneath his coat. 2 security men outside shifted instantly. Elena rose. Adrian withdrew his handgun slowly, holding it by the grip. He placed it on the far end of the table and pushed it away. Metal scraped across polished wood. I didn't come to threaten anyone. Dante glanced at the weapon. That might be the first surprising thing you've done all week. Adrian looked only at Elena. I came because yesterday you asked why I was really there. You answered. Not completely. Elena remained standing. The fountain pen lay between her fingers and Dante's contract. Adrian unbuttoned his coat and set the gray transition binder on the table. For 4 years, you were the first person in my office every morning and usually the last person I saw at night. You knew which calls I would refuse, which meetings were traps, when I hadn't eaten, when I needed everyone out of the room. Elena's fingers loosened around the pen, and I let you do all of it while pretending it meant nothing beyond the job. Dante leaned back, silent now. Adrian placed both palms on the table. Then he looked at you. His eyes shifted once toward Dante. And I hated it. Elena's breathing changed, almost too quietly to hear beneath the ventilation. That isn't enough either. I know. Adrian straightened. Then he offered you a position. I tried money, orders, guards, authority. I kept trying to make you stay without saying why I wanted you to. Elena set the pen down. Why? Adrian's gaze held hers. Because saying it out loud gives every enemy I have something they can use against me. Dante's expression sharpened. Adrian did not look away from Elena. You are the one person whose absence changed the sound of an entire floor. The room became utterly still. Beyond the windows, a train rattled across a distant bridge. You were never just an employee to me. Elena swallowed. Adrian continued before she could answer. I called you that because admitting otherwise meant admitting I had something to lose. Dante's fingers tapped once against the contract. And now, Adrian looked at him. Now everyone in this room already knows. Dante rose. So you came to take her back? No, no. Adrian turned the contract toward Elena and slid the fountain pen closer to her. I came to stop pretending I get to decide where she goes. Elena stared at the pen. Adrian stepped away from the table. If you want Valeni's offer, sign it. Dante's eyebrows lifted. Careful, Moretti. If she chooses you, she chooses you. Adrian's voice remained steady, but one hand closed slowly at his side. I won't threaten you. I won't outbid you. And I won't order her home. Elena looked at him. Then what are you asking me to do? Choose. Adrian picked up his weapon from the far end of the table, secured it beneath his coat, and walked toward the door. Elena's voice stopped him. What if I choose you? His hand rested on the handle. Then you don't come back as my secretary. Adrian turned. You come back with your own office, your own authority, and the right to tell me no in front of every man who works for me. Dante gave a quiet laugh. That sounds suspiciously like my offer. There's one difference. Adrian's eyes returned to Elena. I'm not offering it to keep her. He opened the door. I'm offering it because I should have seen what she deserved before someone else had to show me. Then he left. Elena remained between Dante's contract and the closed door, holding all the power Adrian had spent 4 years refusing to give her. Dante slowly pushed the fountain pen toward her. Well, Elena? She looked down at the signature line, then at the door Adrian had walked through without asking her to follow. Her hand closed around the pen. I've made my decision. Elena signed one line, closed Dante's contract, and slid it back across the black table without giving him the page he wanted. The fountain pen made a soft click beneath the recessed lights, while beyond the glass walls Chicago glittered along the river and the ventilation carried the clean scent of leather and espresso through the room. Dante looked down. Elena had not signed the employment agreement. She had written 2 words across the signature line instead, declined. Respectfully. So, Dante said, leaning back, Moretti wins. Elena clipped the pen into her portfolio. No, you're going back to him. That still doesn't mean he wins. She stood. It means I choose. Dante studied her for a moment. Then a small smile touched his mouth. Make sure he understands the difference. He will. 25 minutes later, Elena stepped from the elevator onto the 42nd floor of Moretti Tower. The executive level was nearly dark, washed in blue security light and the gold reflection of Chicago through floor-to-ceiling windows. Her footsteps crossed the polished hardwood. No guards waited beside her old desk. No assistant occupied it. Adrian stood alone inside his office, jacket discarded across a chair, sleeves rolled once. The gray transition binder lay open beneath his brass desk lamp. He looked up when Elena entered. His eyes dropped to the portfolio beneath her arm. Did you sign? Yes. Something in his face went still. Elena walked to his desk, removed Dante's contract, and placed it before him. Adrian looked at the handwritten refusal. His fingers touched the page, but did not lift it. Why? Because Dante offered me exactly what I thought I wanted. Elena set the black lacquer pen beside the contract. Recognition. Authority. A seat at the table. Those are good reasons to take the job. They are. She looked directly at him. But I realized I didn't want to build someone else's organization just because you were too stubborn to recognize my place in yours. Adrian stepped around the desk. Elena, if you came back because of what I said, I came back because you finally stopped trying to make the decision for me. She removed a folded document from her portfolio. And I have conditions. Adrian almost smiled. Of course you do. My resignation stands. His expression changed. Elena placed the new document between them. I will not return as your secretary. I want executive authority over strategic operations, independent hiring power, direct access to financial and security planning, and my own vote in negotiations. Adrian read the first page. You forgot compensation. Page 4. He turned to it. His eyebrows lifted. That's aggressive. Dante offered more. Adrian picked up his pen. Then I should probably stop insulting you. He signed. Elena took the document, checked the signature, and extended her hand. Adrian looked at it for half a second before taking it. His grip was warm and firm. Welcome back, MS. Rossi. Better. The following morning, the senior Moretti leadership gathered around the same black oak table where Elena had once sat beside Adrian to take notes. Coffee steamed beneath bright recessed lights, and leather chairs creaked as the men noticed two folders at the head of the table. Adrian entered first. Elena followed. One lieutenant gestured automatically toward the chair 3 seats down. Ms. Rossi, we left your usual. No, Adrian said. He pulled out the chair directly beside his own. Her seat is here. Elena sat. A man across the table glanced between them. What exactly is Ms. Rossi's position now? Adrian remained standing. Months ago, the answer would have taken 3 careless words. This time, he let the silence settle. Elena Rossi is Director of Strategic Operations. Her decisions in this room carry the same authority as mine within her division. He looked around the table. And since some of you heard me call her just an employee, hear this too. Elena turned toward him. Adrian's gaze met hers. She never was. I simply didn't have the courage to admit how much of my world depended on her until another man offered her a world where she wouldn't have to stand behind anyone. Nobody moved. Then Adrian sat beside her, not ahead of her. Weeks later, Elena entered his office at 7:05 carrying 2 coffees. Adrian looked automatically toward the sparkling water already waiting beside his cup. You brought it back. Don't get used to it. Too late. Elena smiled and crossed through the connecting door into her own office. Her old secretary's desk was gone. In its place, behind glass overlooking the same Chicago skyline, stood 2 executive offices side by side. Adrian watched her set down her portfolio, then tapped once on the glass between them. Elena looked over. He lifted his coffee toward her. She lifted hers back. Another boss had tried to steal his employee away, and Adrian had finally learned the truth. Elena had never needed to belong to him. He had needed to become a man worthy of standing beside her.